आ रही है आवाज रावत? नहीं
अब क्यों जल्दी निकालते हो यार, तो कर लो ना, इसको थोड़ी देर बंद कर दो या वो कर दो, म्यूट कर दो,
स्टार्ट हुई तो हो गया।
अब पहले 10 बजे नहीं है, आप ना बैठे बाद में करो, पता से परेशान होते हो आप, समझ नहीं है टिश्यू दे
हमारे साथ आपका वीडियो तो नहीं आ रहा?
वीडियो नहीं आ रहा यार। वीडियो नहीं आ रहा। आ गया वीडियो नहीं आ रहा मेरा वहाँ पर।
सब कुछ आ 5 मिनट सब कुछ है, देखो खा रहे हो दिखाई दे रहा है, समझती क्यों नहीं आप? देखो खाते हो तो 5 में बंद कर दो, बंद करके आराम से, पता है नाश्ता करके प्लीज।
आ गया वीडियो आ गया?
आ गया साहब, आ गया, वेरी गुड।
आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ बिल्कुल बुलंद आवाज आ रही है।
वीडियो आ गया?
आ रही है आपको?
है?
मेरी आ रही है?
हाँ तेरी
आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
है?
हाँ चलो आप घूम के आओ आराम से।
क्यों? आवाज आ रही है? आवाज आ रही है?
आवाज आ रही है आपकी?
इसने परसों का लिंक दिया है कि नहीं दिया अभी? रावत रावत
जी बम्बानी साहब,
उसने लिंक दिया है कि नहीं दिया अभी?
है जी?
परसों का लिंक दिया है?
नहीं दिया।
बोल तो देता उसको अभी। है?
क्या कह रहे हो?
अभी बोल देता ना उसको।
हाँ जी जी, रास्ते में हो? कितनी देर में पहुंचे हो? हेलो, कहाँ पहुंचे? रास्ते में हूँ सर। कितनी देर में पहुंच जाओगे? पहुंच जाऊंगा 10 बजे के आसपास पहुंच ही जाऊंगा। ठीक है, ओके हो आ जाओ।
कौन है? कौन है?
तो सही साहब का ऑफिस वाला।
आवाज आ रही है? आवाज आ रही है?
आवाज आ रही है आपकी।
वीडियो भी आ रहा है?
बढ़िया आ रहा है,
हैं?
आ रहा है, बिल्कुल आ रहा है। जो खा रहे हैं वो भी आ रहा है।
ब्रेकफास्ट कर रहा हूँ यार।
हाँ ठीक है, बढ़िया, कर लो आराम से।
एक बजे खत्म होगा?
है 12 बजे।
12 बजे खत्म होगा
है क्या?
प्रोग्राम? प्रोग्राम कितने बजे खत्म होगा?
मैच
हैं?
क्या कह रहे हो, कब खत्म हुआ?
हाँ, नहीं प्रोग्राम कब खत्म होगा आज का?
12 बजे, 10 बजे शुरू होगा, 12 बजे खत्म।
तेरा तो पूरा स्क्रीन में आ रहा है, मेरा सिर्फ छोटा आता है, क्यों?
है जी।
तू तो पूरा स्क्रीन में है आज।
हाँ,
मेरा क्या कोने में है?
तो आपने लेआउट जैसा कर रखा है वैसे ही आएगा।
ये क्या साई का आदमी यहाँ आता है, यहाँ से बैठेगा? हैं?
जी।
साई का आदमी यहाँ बैठेगा?
हाँ आता है। प्रेजेंटेशन दिखाई दे रही है?
हैं?
प्रेजेंटेशन दिखाई दे रही है?
नहीं, और तो कुछ दिखाई नहीं दे रहा, बस तेरी फोटो है, मेरी फोटो है। हाँ, ये आ गया मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैक्ट्री पे, फिर चला गया। इसका जो पूरा नाम है रावत
जी।
इसका पूरा नाम है वर्कशॉप ऑन RDSS स्कीम, स्टेक होल्डर पर्सपेक्टिव सक्सेस फैक्टर।
सक्सेस फैक्टर, हाँ।
मगर जो सर्कुलर भेजा उसमें तो ये तो लिखा नहीं हुआ स्टेक होल्डर।
हाँ, वो RDSS स्कीम सक्सेस फैक्टर।
मगर जो पहले आया था वो आया था स्कीम स्टेक होल्डर पर्सपेक्टिव।
हाँ, वो कुछ कर दिया होगा उन्होंने।
अभी हुए 9:40 हुए।
हाँ जी।
तो इसका ये जो घनश्याम प्रसाद का ये मैं ही बोल दूंगा ना।
हाँ आप ही बोल दो।
सताना ने मैसेज भेजा है उसका। और किसका प्रेजेंटेशन है तेरे पास?
दिख रहा है प्रेजेंटेशन?
हाँ दिख रहा है। और किसका है? दूसरा किसका है?
और भाई एक इसका है, एक मिस्टर आरपी सिंह का।
आरपी सिंह ने भेजा है?
हाँ आज सुबह ही भेजा है। तो वो तो कह रहे हैं मैं खुद चलाऊंगा।
यार ये मेरी फोटो पूरी क्यों नहीं आती है?
हाँ जी।
मेरी फोटो पूरी क्यों नहीं आती है? जैसे तेरी आ रही है अभी।
पता नहीं,
लेआउट पे क्या करूं?
आप अपनी वो करो ठीक।
क्या लेआउट?
हाँ लेआउट ठीक करो।
लेआउट में क्या करूं उसको मैं? ग्रिड, स्टैक, फोकस। फोकस करूं?
हाँ फोकस करो।
फिर भी इधर ही आया।
आ रही है प्रेजेंटेशन?
हाँ आ गई। अभी तो 15 मिनट पड़े हैं।
हाँ जी।
15 मिनट पड़े अभी तो। तेरा ऑफिस से अब सेट हो गया है पूरा? है?
क्या कह रहे हो?
तेरा ऑफिस सेट हो गया?
हाँ ऑफिस सेट हो गया सर। पीछे देख रहे हो फोटो लगा रखी है सबकी।
हाँ। मेरी नहीं लगाई।
आपकी तो है नहीं,
हैं?
आपकी वो राजेश पायलट के साथ है।
हाँ तो लगा दे वो।
हाँ उसको लगा रखे पीछे, दिख नहीं रही आपको?
कहाँ है?
चलो आपकी भी लगा देंगे उसको, राजेश पायलट वाली।
बैकग्राउंड में तो फोटो मेरी है नहीं इसमें,
हाँ नहीं है, आपको दिख रहा है वहां से?
पूरी क्लियर नहीं है वो, बस दिख। किस किस लगाई है फोटो
है
और किसने लगाई है?
ये मंत्रियों की है।
मेरी तो लगा दे कम से कम,
है
मेरी तो लगा दे।
हाँ एक लगा देता हूँ आपकी।
लगा, अभी लगा।
हाँ प्रिंट करानी पड़ेगी अच्छी सी कोई।
मैंने लेआउट में उसको किया, मतलब वो आया नहीं पूरा।
हाँ
लेआउट मैंने किया, फोकस उधर से कर, या तो अपनी तरफ से कर, है
क्या?
तू अपनी तरफ से कर, मेरी फोटो पूरी आ जाए।
ना मेरे यहाँ से कुछ नहीं होगा, तो आपके यहाँ से होगा।
तो मैं क्या करूं लेआउट में?
लेआउट में वो स्टैक करो।
स्टैक?
हाँ
हाँ
कर दो क्लिक,
हाँ,
बस हो गया।
ऊपर आ गया है तो।
हाँ बस ठीक है, आपकी फोटो ऊपर आ गई ना, बड़ी बड़ी।
बड़ी फोटो है,
है
बड़ी फोटो है मेरी।
ना ना, वो तो आपका, आपके मॉनिटर के लिए है, हमारे लिए नहीं है।
तो अभी तेरे को पैसे फोटो कैसे दिखाई दे रही
मेरे को तो सारी दिख रही, छोटी छोटी
है?
छोटी छोटी।
किसकी छोटी छोटी और किसकी है?
और किसी की है ही नहीं, कोई आया नहीं अभी।
तू क्या कर रहा है अभी ये? है रावत,
जी
क्या कर रहा है? क्या कर रहा है तू?
मैं वो रिमाइंडर भेज रहा हूँ।
रिमाइंडर किसको भेज रहा है?
ग्रुप में।
रिमाइंडर स्पीकर को कि डेलीगेट को?
ग्रुप में डेलीगेट।
कितना कंफर्मेशन है? कंफर्मेशन है कुछ?
हाँ कंफर्मेशन था 20 का
है
20 लोगों का।
अभी तो कोई आया नहीं। ये आवाज बंद करने के लिए क्या करना पड़ता है? अनम्यूट या म्यूट?
म्यूट।
म्यूट। म्यूट में आवाज आएगी?
नहीं आएगी।
आ रही है तेरे को आवाज?
हाँ अभी तो अनम्यूट हो ना, हम तो आ रही है।
म्यूट में आएगी?
म्यूट पे नहीं आएगी।
अभी तो मैंने म्यूट कर रखा है।
नहीं हुआ
है?
अभी म्यूट नहीं है आपका।
आवाज आ रही है?
आ रही है।
तो ये तो म्यूट में है, म्यूट है यार बस। मेरी आवाज आ रही है तेरे को?
आ रही है आ रही है।
India Energy Forum was set up in February 2001. We have already completed 22 years.
मॉर्निंग भगवान जी।
गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड मॉर्निंग वर्मा जी, क्या हाल?
बस ठीक है, आप कैसे हैं?
ठीक है।
ये आज बहुत जल्दी मीटिंग रख दिया 10 बजे।
10 बजे साई साहब को जाना है कहीं।
हाँ अच्छा अच्छा। मॉर्निंग सर, मॉर्निंग मॉर्निंग। गुड मॉर्निंग घनश्याम।
घनश्याम दास आ गए क्या?
हाँ आ गए, दिख रहे हैं।
हाँ घनश्याम दास आ गए हैं।
Good morning, Ghanshyam.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. All good, sir.
Anil Sadana has come.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, morning.
Anil,
Yes.
ये चेंज ओवर ऑफ दी घनश्याम प्रसाद का अभी बोल देंगे. Hello.
Yeah.
Sanjay Banga has also come.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Morning, everyone.
Sanjay.
Morning, Sanjay.
Good morning, sir.
Looking fresh. Sanjay.
Sir, being in energy sector, one has to be energetic.
ये घनश्याम प्रसाद का जो चेंज ओवर है.
Sir, Ghanshyam Prasad, sir, I think is joined.
He has joined, but I think he wants to leave early, no?
Yes, sir. He wants to leave early, so we'll start immediately with the Shahi sir address and then Ghanshyam Prasad, sir.
अभी और बाकी स्पीकर नहीं आए अभी.
They will join, sir. I have talked to them. Good morning, RP Singh, sir.
आरपी सिंह साहब आ गए. हाँ.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning. आरपी सिंह. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Babani. How are you?
Morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning,
Thanks
sir.
for being on the panel. Thank you so much.
It's already 10. Hello. अभी साई साहब नहीं आए.
Yes, sir. We are waiting for you.
आ गए साई साहब आ गए. Good morning, साई साहब.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Shahi sir.
साई साहब, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Good morning, Mr. Sai.
good morning, good morning. RP, seeing you after a long time.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Of
Sanjay.
course, of course.
Sanjay, since we have two of our guest speakers to move out, why don't you invite Mr. Shahi to speak so that we can then have Mr. Shahi, Mr. Ghanshyam, and Anil Rawal speak, and then you can make your presentation. We can have Mr. Bambani speak in the end.
Sure, sir. So should we wait for few more to join, sir? Because I can see hardly 15%, 10, 15.
Okay, we can wait for a
We
few
will,
more.
Anil,
You
I
can
will
wait for
welcome
5
you.
minutes.
I will welcome.
You can wait for 5 minutes.
Anil, I will give the welcome speech and proceed.
Oh, we were only saying that you can welcome all by the time we would have had towards the last, so that we have Mr. Ghanshyam who has to leave for the parliament,
Correct.
and
So
similarly
what I will
Anil.
do is, I will, Mr. Sahi will come, and then Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad can.
Okay, okay.
You only tell when should we start.
We just wait for a few more minutes.
Then Singhvi is not joining.
He will join, sir. He has confirmed me. He will join. Before his session starts, 15 minutes before that, he will join.
Has Ghanshyam joined?
Ghanshyam
Ghanshyam has
Prasad sir
joined.
is joined, sir.
Ghanshyam
Okay,
Prasad has
then.
joined.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Ghanshyam Prasad
good
sir, for
morning.
joining us today.
He's there, he's there. Good morning. He's the star of the session.
Absolutely, sir. Otherwise, also, sir, the speed in which we are now finding power sector in different notification changes, I think all credit to Ghanshyam sir for that.
He was doing it in the ministry, now he is doing it in CA. Both.
Absolutely.
And only one has to establish whether the Indian cricket team is picking up from him or he's picking up from Indian cricket team.
Anil Rawal is joining.
Yes, yes, he's there, I guess.
No, Mani Sahab, in order to avoid confusion, a start will be made by our great friend, the convener, Manga, and then you will come at the end to vote of thanks, Mani Sahab. So, few minutes of Mr. Vanga, and then me, and then Ghanshyam, and then we have the other gentleman. Okay.
मेरा जो है welcome address है ना बस.
Okay.
शुरू में address दूंगा अभी. So shall we start?
I think in that case, we should start, Bambani sir, with your 2 minutes welcome address, and then we'll have Mr. Shahi to address this gathering. Bambani sir, just 2 minutes, and then let's have Mr. Shahi.
Okay. Good morning to you all. I welcome you to.
No, you are not audible.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Good morning. I welcome you all to our this flagship webinar workshop on RDSS scheme stakeholders, prospective and success factors. We are honored with the presence of Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad, Chairman CA, and other speakers. I will only say a few words about the India Energy Forum. India Energy Forum was set up in 2001. We have already completed more than 20 years. It's a non-profit NGO with a mission to help evolve a national energy policy aimed at development of a sustainable and competitive energy sector in India. It is probably the only organization which championed the cause of total energy, all forms of energy ranging from coal, power, thermal and hydro, oil and gas, nuclear and renewables from the beginning of its functioning. This feature of its functioning gave a distinct advantage of taking an integrated look on the energy scene. In fact, India Energy Forum did frame an energy policy document, which became an input to the Planning Commission's integrated policy document brought out in August 2006. It holds annual workshops. We are post-COVID, we are holding webinars, 2 webinars per month, and we already have had more than 36 webinars. We have also started organizing the physical programs. We already have 6 programs. Our vision is to contribute effectively for development of sustainable energy security in India. And our mission is to help evolve a dynamic national energy policy to provide a platform for deliberations and recommendations towards development of competitive energy sector, to advise and assist these stakeholders in formulating and implementation of the policies and programs in energy sector, to promote a favorable regulatory framework for development of energy sector, to contribute towards optional, efficient and sustainable use of energy sector. As I said, we have flagship events, webinars and physical programs under our scheme of Urja Vichar Manch. We publish every month our publication, Total Energy, which covers all the notifications and news relating to the energy sector. This is being sent by email to all the members and energy experts. We have over 150 members, all experts from the energy sector, and they are, we are a think tank. As I said, we are a think tank. We are also, as I said, we are also doing the physical programs. So with these few words, I again welcome all the participants and speakers, and are honored with the presence of Mr. Karangansham Prasad, Chairman CA. May I now request Mr. Banga to please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Bambani. And may I request Mr. Shahi to please address this gathering today on a very important topic, which is the revamped distribution strengthening scheme, a flagship scheme of government to reform distribution sector this time. Shahi sir, please.
Thank you, Sanjay. Our chief guest of today's event, Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad. We have the vertical chairman, Mr. Anil Sardana. We have Mr. R.P. Singh. He was the chairman of the Regulatory Commission of UP. Of course, I knew him when he was with the late Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Bajpayee. And at the time I joined the ministry. So we used to have some interactions. This subject is very, very critical. It has always been critical, and I don't know how long it will remain critical. We sorted out through our electricity legislation many of the things on generation transmission we have done reasonably well. We could not sort out on the distribution. We tried, we put certain things, but thanks to different functionaries, different institutions, I think little bit of inputs that we put in the Electricity Act toward distribution sector reform, and that started with reorganization of electricity board that was successfully done. But not much has happened on the electricity distribution. And if I say that when I just was joining the ministry, that at the time Delhi was privatized, and Delhi is a success story. Wherever something has been done, whether franchisee or privatization, it has been, except for a few exceptions, a great success. I think incremental inputs have come. I remember when we did this rural electrification program, a massive program. And I don't remember any program of that dimension or that nature with 90% grant funding by the government of India. And the 10% also funded a small loan by the Rural Electrification Corporation. And it continued for years and years and years. And in that, there was one essential requirement that to avail of this grant funding of 90% for expenditure on renovating, modernizing, and strengthening the rural electrification systems, state has to agree to do franchisee. And the franchisee was input-based franchisee, not meter reading franchisee, not just routine, input-based franchisee. That means at different voltages, inputs of power will be given, and an agreed path of loss will be done, and it will be the responsibility of franchisee to manage this. Unfortunately, in UPA 2, that condition was relaxed. I think it has been to and fro. We want to reform distribution and we want to de-reform distribution. We have very good provisions in Electricity Act. Open access was a good provision. We have a very good provision of tariff being fixed within plus minus 30% of the range, and a number of other issues. But we have not been able to successfully implement this. So far as this scheme is concerned, I must compliment. We have very important individual who contributed from the Ministry of Power. Ghanshyam is here. He used to be in the ministry. Alok was Secretary Power. I had one occasion of a brief intervention in this, very brief, for a few minutes. And I said that unless you put a little bit of meat into this on participation of private sector and make them accountable, it may not work. Now I find in evaluation, PPP has been done, and in the overall evaluation of 100 marks, only 1% or 1.5% is with the PPP. So therefore, it is a massively capex-oriented scheme. It has been very well done. I mean, scheme-wise, documentation-wise, articulation-wise, paragraphing, a lot of visions and a lot of objectives, a lot of narrations on systems, procedures, bidding documents, etc., etc. Much will depend on how it is implemented at the state level, and therefore my recommendation will be, and I followed so long as I was in the ministry, I had a strong belief that we make a scheme. Within 2 years of the scheme, we should review the scheme in terms of implementational issues, because we could have expected the scheme to go in a certain way. It doesn't go, and therefore there are some slips here and there, flaws here and there, implementational difficulties, cooperation, etc., etc. And therefore, review of a scheme should not be done at the end of the scheme, which normally in Government of India, in many places, Planning Commission, etc., they do after the scheme is over. We do a study and see whether the scheme was okay or not. And therefore, it would be good, of course. It is somewhat delayed because of the COVID. I was talking to REC chairman the other day. Maybe it may be extended. It was till 2025. Maybe it may have to be extended. But requirements and expectations are huge. In terms of diluting them would be a danger. Normally, due to political expediencies and political considerations, when states after states are not able to comply with certain things, like you gave the example of franchisee condition being relaxed, we tend to relax this. So at the time when we frame the scheme, we are ambitious and we are systematic and we are comprehensive. And when it comes to implementational point, and we find many of the states are not in a position to do deliberately or unconsciously or because of variety of reasons, then we tend to dilute this. So these dilutions in the distribution sector management, you can say one word, dilution in the distribution sector management, considering the realities. And those realities could be handled differently, but we handle those realities by diluting the requirements. Now that is the danger. So the title of the session is, how do we make it a success? The scheme, formulation of scheme, I give 100 marks. Implementation of the scheme will depend on how seriously we implement it and how seriously states take it. Many of the schemes, this is a scheme. Legal provisions relating to distribution have not been implemented. Legal provisions. Tariff policy is a statutory documents have not been implemented. Open access is a statutory provision has not been implemented. The large number of things which are statutory provisions coming out of legislation directly or legislative instruments directly, they have not been properly implemented. So experience of the past shows, and I'm sure ministry will be very serious, CA will be serious, and to what extent states are serious, we will have to see. Accountability in this would be an issue because private sector has been brought in an indirect manner. And I was loudly I was thinking that this scheme could have been used with a little bit of addition, that when you give the responsibility of fixing the meter with their money, and they are going to be in the form of annuity over a period of time, make them sub-licensee, because this becomes a part of the infrastructure of distribution. Meter, and from 33 kV, 11 kV, beyond that, whatever you do is a part of the distribution infrastructure. If you make them sub-licensee, that could be an indirect way of bringing private sector participation. But private sector participation is not for the heck of it. I am not one who will believe. I have mostly worked in public sector myself. Private sector participation is to fix the accountability. In public sector, we are not able to do. Because I was addressing the regulators of the country, RP was there in that seminar. It was an AGM. And I mentioned that if we did not cooperate with the states and did not bail out the electricity distribution companies, most of them will be NCLT candidates. And you apply, because they are companies today. They are companies like any other company. Non-performance, inability to pay loan will make them candidates for NCLT, and that would be an indirect way of bringing in other players. But we are not able to do. So managing public sector on retail business is a tough task. I have always held that view. How directly, indirectly, or in a graduated manner, I have also held the view that we cannot privatize distribution, lock, stock, and barrel. But can we incrementally do it? Can we identify cities, towns which are very badly done and focus on them? This scheme does not cover that part. It covers the DISCOM as a whole. And to that extent, I will, as I said, that much will depend on how it is implemented. 100 marks for the scheme. Implementation one has to see. And the last point that I made was that after 2 years of its implementation, we should review whether the scheme itself needs review. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shahi sir. You mentioned about the implementation is the key. I find in this scheme some learnings from the past experience is there. If we see the first technical implementation or the grant was in form of revised APDRP, where the funds were allocated for technology implementation by DISCOMs. And that was just completing that project and coming out of that. And government realized that it has not worked well. So this time it is the 10 years of hand holding where someone has to come, implement, manage, and in 10 years, handhold these projects to DISCOMs, and they expect that by that time, the DISCOMs will be developing those capabilities. So I hope that this part has been very well taken. I was always in touch with Ghanshyam Prasad sir when National Smart Grid Mission, few pilots were done on smart metering, and learning from those pilots have also been incorporated in standard bidding application. So this scheme hopefully should serve purpose, but your few points on sub-licensee are, I think, worth noting, sir, and should be noted by MOP. And Ghanshyam Prasad sir is the right person to convey this message there. With that, I will invite Ghanshyam Prasad sir as the chief guest of this workshop to say a few words. And thank you very much for joining us today, sir. Ghanshyam Prasad sir.
Good morning to all the dignitaries today in the India Energy Forum. And let me at the outset thank India Energy Forum for inviting me to be a part of this conversation on a very, very important topic of RDSS. After listening to Sai sir, I think the ball is already rolling and the set. Sir, you are very right, sir, that we had a lot of learning from the earlier schemes, whether it was RPDRP or RGGY or even earlier schemes. wherein we saw a lot of lacunas in those schemes, and we tried to see that those learnings are incorporated in the RDSS scheme, particularly by making it as a reform linked and performance based. These were the two keywords what we were looking at from this particular scheme. And reforms meaning that we wanted to see that certain transformative change happens in the DISCOMs, whether it is in terms of AT&C loss reductions or the other parameters. Say, for example, the clearance of the government dues, payment of subsidies in time, etc., which were the pain points of a DISCOMs. If I may say so, that the realization that comes from the other segments and to this distribution segment are slightly different. And we had always been concentrating either in terms of the adequacy of the network or the healthiness of the network or the management of the DISCOMs or how the DISCOMs is able to have a consumer engagement. And the most important was the financial health of these DISCOMs. And these are the four categories, if I may so broadly, wherein everything was getting targeted. So something has already been done in terms of the management part of it. You might have seen the notification, whether it was prudential norms or the management entry, etc., that has been done through a different route. Consumer engagement part through consumer rights rule, something has been just attempted which was not being attempted earlier. Financial health, we tried to see it coming through the LPS rules and etc., so that the entire power value chain of the power sector gets into a healthy atmosphere. And what we have got a very encouraging result so far, that at least now the current dues is being paid to the either the generators or the transmission companies. And even the past dues have been liquidated, something coming to, I think, around less than 50,000 crores now, from more than 1,40,000 crores of past dues, etc. Now, what next? That becomes the question. And are we really satisfied with the performance of the DISCOMs? If not, then what we are supposed to do in tackling these issues, which is a perennial issues, which is lying with the DISCOMs. Regarding the financials, I think very much has been said about the smart metering, prepayment metering. This is one of the key focus area of this, and this got driven from the very fact how to really improve the financials of the distribution companies. So one, definitely they were dependent on the subsidies, etc., which has already been factored into that. Until unless the subsidies are paid in advance, you will not get the release from the Ministry of Power, or until unless the government dues is paid, you will not get the release from there or any other parameters. Another thing what we found is, if we have to really sustain this business, then distribution companies must have cash in advance. And this, until unless this is there, you will not be able to service the other aspects of it. And that is how the prepayment construct started kicking in. And I have seen wherever it has been implemented, the DISCOMs have started gaining out of it. And another premise that is also there is probably there are DISCOMs with a very poor ratings, and they are many a times finding it difficult to arrange money, even for the working capital of it. And even if they get it at a very high rate of interest. So why not to avoid all this by simply putting everything in the prepayment mode, and the consumers are ready to help the DISCOMs by paying in advance, so that at least the business is managed in a better manner. Now comes is the success of this RDSS scheme. I think right from the beginning, at the time of formulation of the scheme, as well as during the implementation of these schemes, we have been very closely associating the states and taking their viewpoints and trying to see that all the states are on board. It's true that the new construct of this scheme is slightly different from the older schemes, and as we are implementing, we are finding a bit of difficulties, particularly from the laggard states who are not able to meet the parameters which had been specified earlier. Even then, some of the relaxation is being thought about. It is again linked to achieving those things in a certain time frames, and that is how even though this time the compliance is being monitored very strictly, there are certain relaxation which we have seen that we need to give it to some of the laggard states, because you can't leave these laggard states for perpetuity, and they are also supposed to come up someday or the other, and that is how some relaxation we have thought of giving. But again, this relaxation will be linked to their achieving certain milestones as an intermediate milestones. Another challenge what we saw is the moment it was rolled out is coming from the manufacturers of the meters. There were certain challenges in the availability of the meters. There used to be complaints from the customers, from the discoms. So by and large, the coherency between the discoms, consumers, and the service providers, whether it was meter manufacturers or IntelliSmart type of integrators, etc. So these people, they will have to work together with the customers until your customers are in sync with you. Probably the entire scheme will fail. So it is very, very important that we make it available, and that is how the construct of providing a check meter has again been introduced at a latter phase of the RDSS scheme, that a certain percentage of check meter has to be installed so that it gives a greater confidence to the customers. Another thing that happened is the moment you had the people started installing the smart meter or the prepayment meter, there was a tendency of the discoms to charge them even or penalize them even for the past, past performance, and that was giving it a back push, and which discoms definitely didn't had the right to do so, because they themselves didn't put any of the correct measures. So we had again intervened in that manner, that you can't simply charge the customers for the past behavior which the discoms themselves had not taken care of, and simply by installing a smart meter now, that kind of attitude should not be there. So what point I'm trying to drive is that until unless the discoms, consumer, the meter manufacturers, the integrators, and the implementer of the scheme, all of them are in sync, the things will not happen. Since there are manufacturers also probably in the who will be speaking in this particular section, I can see Secure Meters, IntelliSmart and all. I'll only request to these people that please try to see that the equipments are healthy, not much of complaints are received from the consumers, and so on and so forth. Next point that comes is the regulatory support, and we could see that there were certain regulatory commissions which were not in sync with the schemes, and they had put certain objections initially. So definitely the regulatory support will be required, whether in terms of allowing the capex or allowing in whatever mode, whether it is capex or opex or whatever mode it is supposed to be done, but it must be done whether through the RDSS schemes or through any other means, so that at least the discoms are able to perform better. I'll just touch upon one more aspect, since we are deliberating on the RDSS scheme. Is this the last scheme that probably Government of India is supporting to the discoms, or will there be certain more schemes that will be coming in future as well? To my understanding, probably we'll have to handhold the discoms for certain more time to come. And my suggestion in that phase 2 would be that can we think about something like automation, targeting automation, say DSOs or SCADA or some kind of a more automation, so that the consumer behaviors are captured. Maybe supporting them in resource adequacy studies and plans, which right now is a very, very nascent stage as of now with the discoms. Can we think of making some of the discoms or the states greener by through a support, maybe as a measure of RE integration? So there could be a new areas we can think of, so that we quickly move upon and try to see that our discoms are also a world-class discoms, and their performance is anywhere near to any other countries in the world. So with that, sir, I'll close my remarks. I wish fruitful discussions today in this particular forum. I'll be more than happy to receive all the suggestions which will come out of these deliberations today, and we'll further work upon it to improve upon the schemes and the systems. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Ghanshyam Prasad sir. This scheme will definitely need your guidance, and sometimes your stick to discoms to manage or have discipline to implement this scheme, because this scheme cannot be implemented by project implementation agencies unless discoms support these agencies well. And you said it very well that all have to be in sync, because it's not just a kind of a project which could be executed, a cable laying project or transformer installation project. It's a consumer meter where the cash is involved, and the discom support would be required in this. So we'll keep seeking your guidance, sir, in future. Thank you very much for supporting us here.
Sanjay, one
Sadhana, sir.
suggestion. Since
Sir.
fortunately we are running on time, if you can make the presentation, because Anil ji has to leave at about 11, and therefore he will have enough time after your presentation, so we can have the.
So I was thinking of presentation, sir. I have 6-7 slides, but
Why don't you add that?
I'm thinking of not more going into slide, but presenting some key points.
Please go ahead. Please go
right.
ahead.
So when I was planning for this workshop and seeking guidance from you and Sai sir, I had 3 things in mind. One, if this implementation scheme of RDSS has to be successful, then first we should think whether do we have a manufacturing capabilities in India, or is there any constraint in that, so that the raw material is available for that. The second, I was thinking that do we have a good project implementation companies, and good to see the big corporates are now here involved, unlike what we saw in previous schemes where the involvement of even distribution companies or big corporate who are in power sector is not there. So I thought that let's have their discussion also in this forum. And second, which was the third, which was the key point which was coming in mind, that the cost of this scheme, when the government has a little portion as a grant, where from the other money will come, or whether this money will be loaded to consumer tariff. And then I thought that let's have a regulatory perspective also in this workshop, and then we invited RPC. So that is why I thought of having Sunil Singhvi, who is the CEO of Secure Meter here. I thought of Anil Rawal sir, who is implementing big projects, and then I thought of RP Singh sir, who can bring us regulatory aspect. Now, when I see this scheme, that why we have this scheme here in discussion, because this scheme is going to be a game changer scheme. This scheme says that the 1,50,000 crores would be available for implementing smart metering. 1,50,000 crores will be available for system strengthening. And the third component, it says that there will be around 1,500 crores which will be available for capacity building of these discoms. So the hand holding is proper. And the main objective of this scheme is the present ACR and ARR gap, which is around 25 paisa. Can it be mitigated by this scheme? And as Ghanshyam Prasad ji sir has said, that the cash flow or the cash positive of discoms is necessary for their sustenance. Can we make these discoms cash positive by implementing this scheme? If this scheme goes well as it is in this form, and now we see around 8 crores smart meters ordering already has been done, the big corporates are there for implementing this scheme. This scheme is very, very critical in the sense that if this scheme is implemented, the discom's entire process of commercial, and all commercial processes will change. And they will not be having any billing agency, collection agency. And if this system doesn't work, then instead of cash positive, they will go in a deep red. And that will lead to virtually a death of discoms if it is not being again refueled by government, which again would be very difficult, the kind of scenario we have presently. We saw last year, sir, the AT&C losses had come down to 16% on national average. But if we go into detail of that, then we find this reduction of 5% is mainly because of the subsidy disbursement. It is not because of the improved DISCOM performance. It's mainly because of the government fund have gone, collection efficiency has improved. The billing efficiency has not improved overall in India level. If this scheme can help in improving billing efficiency, and if this scheme is implemented in the way it has been thought, then definitely we can see some light at the end of the tunnel. But otherwise, we are going into the deep problem, much more deep problem than what we have in DISCOM right now. So that's the context, sir, for this workshop. I thought we should have views from meter manufacturing. We should have views from implementation partner like IntelliSmart, and we should have views from regulatory. And then we put up those on a platter to Shahi sir to take forward with MOP. So with this thought, sir, we will invite Anil Rawal for his views on what kind of challenges he find in implementation of this scheme. Particularly, IntelliSmart is involved in big states like UP, Bihar, Assam. Anil Rawal, sir, over to you, and thanks for sparing time for this workshop.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bangaji. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah. So, first of all, with due regards to the chair, Shri Ghanshyam Prasad ji, and lots of thanks to this forum. Actually,
Anil,
I'm
we lost
really.
He's
It's
audible,
better.
sir.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah, you are audible, Anil.
Right,
Hello.
right. Yeah, Sadhana sir, it's audible to you. There's some issue on your side. Yeah. So I was saying that I'm very thankful to the forum for inviting me. I'm seriously privileged to be in this esteemed gathering. So, coming to the point that about scheme, I think lots have been said and very well said. I would just add few bites to that. That let's look at this scheme not only as a key last leaf in the improvement process of distribution, operational, and systemic efficiencies, but also see this scheme as a new big start. To my mind, smart metering is not an end of the scheme. It's actually not a full beginning of the new process of digitalization in the sector. Sector has not seen much of digitalization at any point in time. We have to see that not the only reduction of T&D losses is the purpose here. Purpose is to build the framework of or backbone of smart grid in the country, which is no more a fad or no more a wish list. It is essential now. If we have to really work on the net zero or sustainability or demand side management or integration of renewables or solar rooftop where we stand nowhere because these are net meters, or SCADA or energy accounting. Frankly, there's endless chain of things which actually start from smart meters. So it is essentiality. It's a, I would believe it's a sort of no two reasons to implement. It is a no U-turn situation. We have to move on. We have to work together. And I see significant bright light in this. Why I've been luckily involved in the process of evolution of the scheme for last about 3 years, seen all pitfalls, all lows and highs of the process. This scheme started with thinking of an EPC mindset, where that meters would be installed, and then capex thinking was there. There was literally no OPEX thinking, no 10 years hand-holding process. So it has really gone through lots of rigmarole to really reach where we stand. I'm really very, with lots of conviction, I can say that's a very solid framework which has come out as a result of this long brainstorming. Why I want to highlight is that the framework is very strong, is the point that lots of private participation and investment is getting attracted to the distribution sector. And why that's happening is because of a solid payment security system. Let me tell you, rest of things are obviously important. There's a very well balanced risk reward mechanism in the scheme. But what is the hallmark or the center or the soul of the success of the scheme is the payment security mechanism. We don't have a great history of great contracts in distribution sector for whatever reasons without debating. That was the single central point to be handled well if the scheme has to go through with private investment into the distribution sector. And I'll just take 1 minute on just, I'm sure everybody knows, but to bring the context and build on from there, I'll just take 1 minute. That how this payment security mechanism is structured is that there is a payment gateway where all online payments are coming from the consumers. These payments are going to independent bank account that's called DDA account, distribution debit account, which is a new account where the DISCOM has no control. So instruction comes from the DISCOM to the DDA account for paying. So payment gateway is required to divert that much of money to this DDA account, which pays to the AMISP. So 3 things are happening in this process. That instructions of the DISCOM to pay are based on the SLAs, which are agreed, and there's a dashboard. So there's no way that I can say something else and DISCOM can say something else. And if SLAs are there on the dashboard, there's a provision of dashboard, there's a provision of SMOC, Smart Metering Operation Center, where the SLAs would be watched. Based on that, instruction can be issued. So there's less chance of dispute. Once the instruction is issued to pay, DDA account has to pay, and payment gateway has to bifurcate the payment. That X amount of payment which go to the AMISP would go to the DDA account, rest would go to the DISCOM account. And in addition to that, this payment is being treated to AMISP part I'm saying is being treated as O&M expense. That also means it is perceived, at least, let's see how it works out, that there's no charge on this payment because this is O&M expense categorization. So this actually protects, this is small money. This is small money, frankly, out of the total exchequer which comes to the DISCOM, but it is almost ensured that if SLAs are being met, it's being paid to MISP. So in the whole context, this becomes a soul of the scheme actually. This we have been talking to all the lenders, all the financial institutions. Actually, I've personally spoken to at least 8 to 10 financial institutions, which are very large in the country, and has been liked by almost all of the people. And they see more interested in the scheme because of this structure being there. So if there's a performance coming from AMSP, the payment is almost ensured. If payment is ensured, lender is more sure to invest. Investors are more sure to invest. And that is already proven in the sector. I'm sure all of us know that large investors have already shown interest in the companies. There have been large, big ticket transactions happening in the sector, and funds are being committed to the sector. I myself have done Assam already, which is about 70% complete, where we had tied up funds with a banker, which is a government banker. They've happily funded it. And I want to say with lots of pride that about now 14 months are through where every month we are getting payment and there's no issue. This is a pure project finance structure. Lender is getting the money. We are getting our money, obviously to the extent of performance. It has to be performance. No performance, no money situation. So that has actually proved on the ground in last about 2 years that this scheme can be run successfully, and that structure was there before RDSS, but then it's exactly almost the way RDSS has come up, but the payment security has come up. So that is proven in the country that this scheme is workable, and that has led to many investors coming. Obviously, NIF stands as a key investor to us, which is the largest, I would say, fund in the country. So I was saying that this is the hallmark of the scheme. Now let's see the problems. I'm expected to tell the challenges, and it's when 8 crore meters, more than 8 crore meters have been awarded, about 15 crore meters are under tendering. Out of that 15, 8 are through, more are going to come. This scheme is already picked in full swing. So where are the challenges? We have already started, as I said, 70% Assam is completed, rest are started. We have signed Gujarat and many other places we are in the process. So where are the challenges we are facing? First thing which I am finding is that somehow this payment security mechanism, which I explained, which is hallmark of the scheme and the soul of the process, somehow has not been appreciated thoroughly by the utilities. They are finding it difficult. They are finding it actually unmanageable, or I don't know where is the inertia or where is the reservation. They tend to tweak it. See, and then they say that I'm just tweaking one thing, why you're so worried. So if you try and tweak my soul, then my body is irrelevant. Distribution sector has to understand that whole history of distribution is being actually being portrayed in the right picture due to this payment security mechanism. So that's a one big thing which is happening. And almost everywhere, I want to tell you, almost everywhere, distribution companies are now thinking that they should have done this, they should have done that, this is not right thing. That is the main struggle. They should not revisit the document after the bidding has been done. If it was to be done, it was done before. Whatever we are doing today, whatever, say, if I'm into 2 crore meters today, they are all financially almost tied up before I enter into bid. And that's true with all my competitors and all my other companies which are participating. We cannot revisit things once they have been agreed. Yes, we can revisit, but for future. There's a first big thing which is causing some amount of distress, which we need to really address. Second big thing which I would feel is a bit of issue here is that expectations. Distribution companies have their own history, which is really great in managing whatever they have done. They expect things to fall in line with the way they are expecting. For example, if they want testing to be done, they want 100% testing to be done. This has to be practical. You can't test every meter before installation. If you do this, there are no labs in the country. SBD says 5% or bracket, it says it can be increased. That doesn't mean increase it to 100%. Nobody can object. Means they are right contractually because there is leeway given, but leeway is not to take it to 100% and then implement in 26 months. Let's understand, if say a contract of 50 lakh meters to be done in 26 months, out of that 7 months is for testing only, which is actually prescribed, it is to be done in 20 months. 20 months, 50 lakh meters is 2.5 lakh meters per month. What this country has ever achieved fastest is 2 lakh meters in 1 month. And here is the challenge, which actually takes, say, 15 crore or 20 crore meters to be done in next 26-25 months. It cannot be done in the same manner, which may not be very conducive to the new requirements. So we have to really be more practical. Similarly, meters. Sometimes they want meters to be specifically what they want, which is not fair. There are specifications given. We should actually allow more and more vendors to this. When we talk about manufacturing capacity, my conviction is there's no dearth of manufacturing capacity, provided we allow. Industry has to come up. Companies like IntelliSmart has to work like a platform where multiple companies, small companies can come up and join hands and perform. We have to provide an ecosystem that requires a larger supply chain to come up. We should allow more and more supply chain to come up. We should allow more induction to be done for the new meter manufacturers, which actually is a small issue here. That's another thing which I wanted to highlight. Then approval processes. See, SBD does not ask every vendor to be approved. But then there's a old thinking that every vendor is to be approved afresh. GTP approvals, which actually are critical for meter manufacturing, take long time. If we spend so much of time in GTP approvals, frankly, we cannot move fast and we cannot reach this kind of targets. So that's another thing. Then there's a clause of feeder meters to be installed in 9 months. 7 months we are spending for doing the SAT, which is called system acceptance testing. 9 months we are asking all the meters to be installed. And when we don't have much history of feeder meter installation in the country, that's a bit impractical things which have been put in the structure, which is to be looked into. So these are some of the things actually which are issues here. And I want to highlight few more things in the sense that check meters. Check meters is a great initiative, and I was part of that discussion where check meters were discussed. But there's a practicality here. Check meter is asked to be the meter which is already there, which is the old meter of the DISCOM. You are benchmarking the new meter with some meter which is not sure. So benchmark has to be beyond doubt. You have existing meter which is installed on the ground. You are saying the new meter has to match with this old meter. If this new meter does not match with the old meter, then the new meter is defective. Who has tested and approved this old meter? So this is a great initiative of having check meter, but then let's be sure about the benchmark meter. It's a benchmark to whom you are asking the new meter to be matched. That too after approving the new meter before installation. You are yourself approving the new meter before installation, giving the PDI confirmation. Then you are asking it to be tested with check meter, which is perfectly fine. But you don't know about the check meter with which you are testing it. Then who pays for the check meter? Ultimately, it's a commercial transaction. It has come up before bidding. Check meters were not in the picture, at least for the MISPs. Now check meters are in the picture, which is perfectly okay, properly acceptable. This is government regulation, and we have to respectfully agree to that. But what are the commercial implications to the MISPs? It's not defined anywhere. So every DISCOM is defining in its own way, which all, they are also right. There's no clarity on that. So there's some amount of clarity is required on that. Then billing system. We are pumping huge quantum of data. See, about 96 reads are to come from every meter every day. We know that is required. If I say it's 100, and if I talk about my 2 crore meters, then 2 crore into 100, 2 billion data files I have to capture daily. I have to pump into the billing system. Is the billing system ready? I think we are a bit slow on evolving the billing systems in the country. It shouldn't happen that whole MISP chain performs. Means I'm not saying that they'll certainly perform. There are serious challenges on that also. We can discuss few more, but let's be ready for the end, which is going to consume this data. There I see significant gap we need to work on now, because, and the positive I see there is billing system won't take much time, while this the MISPs would take some time in installing. So it is still a right time. We should actually do it now and fast. Then the SCADA part. We are trying, as I said, metering is not for only T&D loss reduction. There's the least possible use case of smart meter. We should not actually end there. We should actually start with the installation of smart meter. And T&D loss reduction is given, it will happen. I'm very, very sure, because whatever examples we have seen in metering so far, I have proven already. This is a proven use case. We should look for the use cases which are further available. SCADA obviously becomes very critical in those use cases. Net metering, TOD, these are the new use cases. If I don't give to the consumer, why should he accept me? We talk to the consumer awareness. Consumer awareness is good, but by being aware as a consumer, I'm getting aware on this also, that I was not paying earlier per hour. Now I'll have to pay. This is my awareness. What is there for me in that as a consumer? So for giving something to consumer, we have to work on many things which are important. And for that, this evolution of SCADAs, evolution of billing system, evolution of data analytics is very, very critical. TOD, TOU, all these things are critical so that we can give back to the consumer. P2P, there's already pilot happened where point-to-point transaction can happen, and net meter or solar rooftop can earn money actually on the ground. So these are some of the things which we need to give to consumer for them to accept it. By just generally telling that meters are coming, they'll help you, and there'll be a mobile app where you can see your consumption, may not be really enough for consumer awareness. So that's another part. Biggest thing I want to highlight here is the EPC mindset. Frankly, this scheme is great, but it is a kind of structure which is very different than so far distribution sector has ever seen. They've seen all capex models, they've seen EPC models. As very rightly brought out by a distinguished speaker before, it is a all stakeholder working together situation. Ownership is to be co-owned between DISCOM and the MISP. I want to really assert here that Assam has been a success to large extent because of simple reason that DISCOMs have come forward to own the scheme. It is a front of distribution licensee, or say it's front of DISCOM and strength of MISP, which has to work together to deliver the scheme. So that mindset has to go, and the co-ownership of contractor ownership mindset has to actually go. So that's another part which I want to highlight. And one more thing which I want to end with is that we need to have an effective forum. This is a great forum where we're discussing, but we need a forum where every month, at least once, AMISP and DISCOMs can come together and have the implementation mechanism. For example, some of the things which I have raised would be AMISP's perspective, which could be wrong also. I want to, with lots of humility, submit here. What I'm saying is AMISP perspective. It could be wrong also. There has to be face-to-face with DISCOM, and there has to be authority which actually is taking actions on doing trajectory corrections. These are must, because we have not seen such schemes in past where OPEX model is being implemented at such big scale in in distribution sector, and there are so many investors who come to back this scheme. A trajectory correction path is required. For that, a forum is required. So these are a few small things from my side, and I should be forgiven in case I have exceeded anywhere, but that this is my perspective of things. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anil Rao. I can see some sign of frustration also on your face. But let me tell you, me, Mr. Sardana, being in this sector for last 2 decades, are very much used to this. Metering issues.
I thought we are better prepared to implement this scheme. After listening to Anil, I feel that preparations to implement the scheme itself requires to be gone through.
Sir, it's not preparations, but then as we are implementing, we need to do more brainstorming while we are on the track to do things.
No, but everything you have said, Anil, is the thing. One is that when you implement, you get into some unpredictable problems. Everything that we have said is not the problem that get created. It's the problem which should be predicted before getting on to implementation. I mean, really, I didn't know this. I was reading the scheme, such a great scheme, research type of a scheme. So many pages and every detail. But that preparations to launch the scheme and get going, all the points you are saying is all of them could be predictable problems. And then you are faced with some unpredictable problems. So I am little more. I mean, in the beginning I thought it is very well prepared to launch. But 2 years we had COVID, and now 2 years it will be extended. 2025 it was to end. It will go to 2027. But all the points you have made are very, very valid points. Unfortunately, all those points should have been gone through before getting onto it. Okay, fine.
I would submit 1 more minute, sir. Whatever I have said is more of ground situations. As I said, sir, it's a very solid framework, but the way the framework is interpreted and implemented requires more brainstorming and more sitting together, sir. And if we do it consistently, these things, spirit is great, structure is great, but it's all about implementation. So both sides actually have to sit together more repeatedly on a forum where we can actually do these things and make it more successful.
I agree with you. Okay.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Rahul. You mentioned about payment security management, a very solid point, very well built in SBM. The other point which you mentioned. But the key point which we all agreeing here is the support of DISCOMs. The problems which you are encountering is not the problem of SBD, but the support which DISCOM has to own this project and support different implementation agencies to complete this project on time would be a key success factor for this scheme. This scheme is a scheme where whether it's 10 lakh meter or it's 60 lakh meters, DISCOMs want to get it implemented in the same time frame. So challenges would be humongous for those players who are going to implement 30 lakh, 35 lakh, even 40, 50 lakh meters in 2 years' time. I have Mr. Sunil Singhvi, who is the CEO of Secure Meter, and he has experience of implementing smart metering in Bihar and also in Australia, and they have a presence in UK also. Their manufacturing capabilities are there for smart metering, and they supply smart meters not only in India but export also. I would request Sunil Singh to present his thoughts on manufacturing capabilities of smart metering and how see those kind of challenges in this scheme when he see it from meter manufacturer side. Sunil Singhvi, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am there.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Most welcome here.
Can Mr. Rawat share my presentation?
All right, sir. Share it. Visible, sir?
Yeah, I can see. Good morning, and thank you, India Energy Forum and Bangaji, for giving me this opportunity. and also very pleased to see very distinguished panel under whose their guidance I have, learned a lot about the power system as well as the metering. So thank you, like Sai Saab, Sadhana Saab, all are practically mentor to me. I worked with them for many, many years. I'll just give an perspective of the manufacturing capacity, but I will also cover some of my experiences of implementing the RDSS scheme in Bihar, where we are rolling out 2.6 million meters in North Bihar. What is the production trend? I've just collected data from the EMA. What has been the production trend of the meters, because smart meters started recently. So Indian meter industry has produced about 162 million meters, both for domestic and some exports over the last 5 years. And we had a peak of 46.5 million, close to 50 million meters. And that is in 2018-19, when we had a rural electrification program at the peak. The problem with the Indian metering industry is that we have a cumulative capacity of 100 million meters per annum, including smart meters. Now, the majority of the lines have been redesigned for smart meters, but the industry has a problem of only capacity utilization of 50%. And where the industry is struggling today is an inconsistent demand. The demand over the year is inconsistent, over the months is inconsistent. And why the challenges, I will like to explain in detail. So the capacity, I agree with Mr. Anil Lawal, we have a sufficient capacity to roll out smart meter. The problem lies somewhere, and how to make it smooth. I'll give few suggestions. Next slide, please. You see the trend of smart meter installations. It started in 2016-17, and so far we have installed only 8 million meters of smarts. So although we have installed total meters cumulatively we installed in the country, never installed more than 30 to 40 million meters. If you see the historical trend, the India has installed peak meters of 40 million meters. It was never a capacity constrained market. It was a availability of the site, support from the distribution staff, as well as the availability of the trained manpower. And you see the difference. Earlier were the normal meters where you were required to connect simple wires. Now you are moving to an era where you have to commission the meter using communication technologies and the software tools. And there's another challenge. And my concern is that over the last 5-6 years, we are not really ramped up to the speed which was projected to manufacturers. And many of the meter manufacturers put a huge capacity of smart meters and even bought the inventories, but demand has not ramped up. So there's another challenge for the meter manufacturers. Next slide, please. What are the key challenges? I think the first challenge, as per me, is the scaling deployment to 250 million meters, because it's a huge task of installing 30 within 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years, 250 million meters. I will explain with the data why it is a key challenge. Number two, I think, is we are rolling out these meters in the prepayment mode. And unless you give adequate training to the consumers and consumer engagement starts in advance, the acceptance becomes problem. I will share my experience of rolling out smart meter in Victoria. When we started rolling out smart meter in Victoria, even not in the India, there was huge resistance from the Victorian customers because there was no program of engaging customers. And my request here also, unless the distribution companies start, advanced engagement, we have a customer resistance. And biggest problem we have while implementing that we don't train the consumer in the use of mobile app or how meters will be used. Then customer have outages and there is a problem. Even some cases I've seen the utilities try to cover backlog, all areas in one go. And if consumer top up 1,000 rupees and this all amount goes in 1 hour, then poor guy is disconnected. Now Ministry of Power has issued some guidelines, but I think the understanding the sociology while implementing prepayment will be critical to success. I've seen one example where there was no communication network available and the meter had a balance. And I don't know how the people implemented technology. Suddenly the communication got connected and the whole balance became zero in one go. Now those type of technological challenges, the meter manufacturers have responsibility. The AMI SPS have responsibility. Okay, they should not develop a system which creates inconvenience to consumers and the resistance develops. I think, and there the very good cooperation of the regulator and the utility also required. Sometime in the hurry to recover the areas, they took some decisions which caused inconvenience to the consumers and the poor system design. I agree with Anilji because another challenge is the large scale system integration and deployment. And I think it can work very well if the distribution companies, AMISP, meter supplier are at the same frequency. And unless you work in cohesive fashion, the project gets delayed. We had very good experience of working in Bihar, honestly. In a record time, we had a very good support from Bihar, and we could roll out in time and started ramping up. And even while customer assistance were coming in the few districts, there was a good political support as well as administrative support. And there was practically there was stoppage for about a 20, 25 days slowdown, but we could again ramp up very fast. When I talk about the per day meter requirement to be installed, we have a challenge of adequate trained manpower. Why I am talking about from the manufacturer's perspective, there is a lot of start-stop in the smart meter ramp up. And where the manufacturer gets stuck up because the AMISP place order on the manufacturers, but they don't pick up the deliveries. So unless we have a proper trained manpower and ensure their continuity, ensure the regular productivity, then this creates a problem. We heard a couple of years back that there is a serious supply chain constraint. It is now improving, but still there are long lead items. Some of the lead items, electronic components are 6 to 8 months ordering cycle. And we as a manufacturer have to place order for a whole year in advance. And I think there is a need to have a clear agreement and visibility about the installation plan. Otherwise, there will be over inventory or lack of components available. And again, I'm saying that as per the data of about 1.6 million meters have been installed in 6 months, which is a good news that I think is now ramping up. So I think these are some of the challenges which we have to think through before we start planning for the inventory, raw material, and manpower. Next slide, please. These are some of the, I think when we went to the sites, some of the things we experienced, there is no physical wall available. Meters are hanging, there are mud walls. But I think we have to design our engineering to such that we can properly install an expensive piece of device. And I think such advanced system engineering will be helpful to ensure that there is a consistent installation and supply chain. Customer assistance, I already talked about. Skill manpower and safety is a big challenge today. And again, I think Power Sector Council, manufacturers, and AMISP, we need to work together to train the manpower and ensure that they not only install meter, but able to establish the communication with customer and the backend system both. Poor electrical network, you'll be surprised to know that even there are no neutrals coming to consumer house. Right now, the people were connecting neutral to the earth, which is not a good safety practice. Under the RDSS scheme, now the neutral wire is being provided to the home, but utility, meter manufacturer, and AMISP have to work a cohesive manner to plan the installations. How many meters will be required? I will share my experience of the globally, how people work. Usually they keep 3 months inventory in their stock. And I think so that if there is any supply chain delay, etc., they have a 3 months inventory. More than 3 months inventory is not required at their stores of the AMISP or site. And the meter manufacturers have to ensure that they deliver on time to ensure the consistency of supply. Next slide, please. Now, I think if we have to achieve the milestone by 2026, then 270,000 meters have to be installed per day. And an average team installs 7 meters a day. So you imagine 50,000 people required. And if you take absenteeism, more than 75,000 trained manpower required to meet our goals with proper database of the utility. If I extend by a year, still 190 to about 200,000 meters required per month. And we have per day, sorry. And we have not really so far done it. So I think I agree with Sai Saab, unless we think through it properly, we'll have the same experience as other countries have. My experience working in UK for so many years, program is running late by 6-7 years. Australia is running late by 5-6 years. So unless manpower, supply chain, and sites are cohesively planned, we'll struggle. And we always talk about manufacturing capacity, but I don't talk it's a manufacturing capacity, but I complete throughput. We have to think through. Very, very important point of it. So we are not working on the manpower today, and manpower is moving from one project to another project. Same manpower is going to another RDSS project, and the industry is struggling today. Next point, please. As Banga Saab said, I think there's no lack of capacity in India, and I'm very happy that made in India meters, smart meters are being exported to the whole world. UK has got about 7 million smart meters which were manufactured in India. Australia has about 1.5 million meters which are manufactured in India. So the even not developed world is using Indian smart meters. Dubai, Oman, Singapore, Malaysia, everywhere, even number of African countries and European countries are using the smart meters being made in India. So we have a state-of-the-art plants in India producing smart meter by at least number of meter manufacturers. And I can say with also pride, India is one of the largest metering R&D in the world. So some of the issues I was talking about, I think if the distribution companies, AMISP, and the metering R&D team work cohesively about the system issues, the planning issues, we can resolve these issues. Number two, I think very important, if you have to scale up, there will be some issues with the communication reliability, but you can't disconnect a prepayment customers. So unless you properly design your system, etc., you will have simple problem. But I think what I can say with if India can export globally with the Chinese competition also, then I can say that Indian industry is capable and is very competitive. Next point, please. Next slide. So what is the way forward? As I already said, ensure consistency of installation. We can't afford start, stop. Then industry will suffer. We have to do supply chain planning. No, you can't come and say to supply in 1 month or 2 months because components have long lead times. Another point which I want to highlight here is the total cost of ownership. We still have I'm not saying because I'm from meter manufacturing industry. If in a smart meter, if we still compromise on the quality, people are buying on the cheapest smart meters. Unless you develop the total cost of ownership, and I have a very good experience of working with one UK utility, one of the very large UK DNO and retailer. They worked with a consultant and developed a total cost of ownership while going for the reverse auction also, e-auction. And the people were given different weightages based on their quality, support, etc. So if we have to make this program successful, and why I'm talking about quality of ownership and quality important, if you have a very large failure of meters, which people have expressed in few of the rollouts in India, then problem will be the consumer resistance will start. You can't afford a higher failure. Failure has to be less than 0.1% per year. Unless you work on the cost of ownership, because these assets are owned in the OPEX mode. So my request to all the AMISP is please look at the cost of ownership rather than initial cost only. And this is important for making the AMISP model successful. And I think if we do it properly, I think it will be the world's largest rollout. And we have a technical and all capabilities to make it successful and attract more investment in the power sector. And I think I'm very lucky, honestly, working with the DISCOM in Bihar. Luckily, we got all the payments on time. They opened our escrow account. We're getting money on the payment time. We're getting proper planning, proper support, and no testing in the meter lab. So they given a long dispatch clearances to me for a large volume, and every month meters are going, and they are paying based on the dashboard. And I think we are very, very lucky to work with the DISCOM where we're getting very good support. So this much I can say. If any question, I'll be happy to reply. Thank you very much.
I am happy that you are praising Bihar.
So, sir, honestly, my experience
is
very, very good.
Always Bihar at the end. I was myself happy being a Bihari. That Bihar is doing well, that gives me some doubt actually.
Sai Saab, let me tell you, I think Bihar is one DISCOM. I'm very happy to tell you, even without RDSS, we were being paid on time. One transmission company was paying us in 15 days.
Yes.
And no other DISCOM
that is because somebody else pays there, no? Not the distribution company.
Yeah, but even distribution companies are.
You know, the government pays there.
Yeah.
So don't be happy that distribution company is doing well.
But I think from the RDSS point of view, the quality of support we got it,
Yeah.
and the amount of recovery, sir, if you see the performance, the money which they recovered in smart meter is very, very huge. It is
Okay, very good.
improving their financial performance.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you
Thank
very much for providing insight on manufacturing capabilities and also experience from different discoms and abroad.
Thank you.
Shahi sir, I sent my Tata Power team Bihar 6 months back from Odisha to learn about smart metering. And I was surprised when the way they were appreciating a smart metering project has been owned by Discom. And with the pride they were showing the amount which they have collected and the success of this project. And in fact, that was the first time I had some hope for this RDSS scheme to be successful in India. Because the way Discom representatives were talking with energy that we have implemented it, the benefits we are getting is actually rare to see in any Discoms. Coming to your point on R&D expenditure is maximum in India. On the lighter side, the kind of R&D expenditure which is on the metering, tampering and theft may be also highest in India. And that may be the reason why R&D expenses in smart metering are very high.
Maybe Sunil is including that also.
But I think a good thing, I think with the what changes, I think Sadhana Sahab, you brought in, other people brought CSC and Banga Sahab. I think more focus has moved now from the designing meter for tamper proofing to data analysis. And it is optimizing cost of meter and also, getting more benefit out of it. So there is a shift now from meter to data.
Right. Thank you.
Let's hear Mr. RP Singh. I think we will have a crescendo.
Thank you, Sunil, very much. And let's have RP Singh, sir, on a totally different perspective on the cost of this project, whether it's a state government or it's a consumer who should bear this burden. RP Singh, sir, thanks for taking time here.
Okay. I'll actually give the context. Actually, UP, can you see the screen?
I can see your presentation, sir.
Yes.
Very well.
Before I begin my presentation, I'll just give the background context. In fact, I've been lucky to have an experience of dealing with smart meter rollout. One of the first experiments in 2018, whereby we allowed 4 million meters to be rolled out by EESL in 2018. And we had a mixed experience of that experiment, and my views here are based on the lessons which we have learned from that and how I see the Indian power system emerging. Actually, the problem is that mostly we deal the power sector as a sectoral issue, which is a technical in nature. But I see it as a multi-sectoral approach, which is we have to see it in the political economic constant with a socio-economic aspect. And when we try to solve this problem through a technical approach, perhaps it may not fit into the design. For example, things were moving. We had many previous reforms like FRP, UDAY, etc., all with a noble objective of achieving the similar things which the RDSS is also trying to achieve. Then we had Saubhagya, which was with a good intention of improving the accessibility of the power sector, and it succeeded to a great extent. As Mr. Sai sir was saying, that capital grant which was provided by the government of India was a great contributor. However, in the power sector, the capital grant which is provided just washes away through the revenue losses which the discoms meet in very few years of time. If the target beneficiary or the group, if they do not have the capacity to repay. And in the Saubhagya scheme, at least in UP, whatever has been added, more than 80% of that number belongs to the category which did not have the capacity to pay. Forget about the willingness to pay. So that is one context we have to also keep in mind. The third thing is that our grid structure is changing rapidly. We have the national determined commitment of achieving more than 50% of our capacity. And that means basically the grid will have flexible generation and flexible load both. And to meet that, we must have a smart grid. Mr. Rawal was correctly mentioning. we are trying to use a howitzer to kill a small deer. AT&C is a very small objective for, to achieve through such a, great building block of smart grid. Basically, smart meters are going to be the building block for the smart grid. So in the designing context, perhaps this aspect has not been given due consideration. And the last point, the context is that it's a one size fits all approach. That means give or take, you have to follow this. Whereas the distribution sector in every state varies from each other. The consumer mix is different, the load profile is different, the challenges are different, but we are trying to address through a common framework. So with this background, I now start with my presentation, and this is the objective which has been already talked about, so I'll not delve on this. And the scheme has been already discussed with 25 crore smart prepaid meter. Mind the word is prepaid meter installation. Now this prepaid meter, smart meter is welcome. Prepaid meter has got its own challenges, which I'll come to later. And this is the budgeting framework, out of which about 150 lakh, 1,50,000 crore is going towards the smart metering. And currently, we have about 100 million manufacturing capacity with 87 BIS certified meter manufacturers. And we have 51 AMISP in panel, but incidentally or whatever, most of them do not have working experience with the distribution company. For them, it's going to be a very, very tough time. And as on date, the National Smart Grid Mission tells about 223 million, 230 million meters sanctioned and 50 million has been awarded. And SBD has been amended several times. Even RDSS has been also amended several times, in fact, 7 times to be precise, to incorporate new conditions. Some of them are not aligned with the best practices. The benefits are there to the DISCOM level. The technical benefits are undeniable, undisputable. No one can even say a single thing against the smart metering. DISCOM circle level gains, DISCOM gains, the state gains by way of better analyzing the demands and energy forecasting and peak load, etc. And it improves upon the consumers gain, their experience goes better, they get empowered to monitor consumption pattern, etc., etc. The regulators gain, they get hold of the reliable statistics for planning and tariff determination, things like designing demand response, TOD, IO, etc., etc. And it also improves the compliance of performance in terms of SAIDI, SAIFI, etc. Because they are the indicator already notified by various regulations and rules. But unless until the smart meters are there, you cannot have these things worked out individually. And innovative concepts like peer-to-peer energy transaction, we already had a pilot done in our state. The grid operators are also benefits. So overall, the technical benefits are enormous, no dispute about it. Now coming back to why this smart prepayment mode. The ministry, the background is the CEA, which is the authority to prescribe the regulation regarding the meters to be worked out, had recommended adoption of smart meter with payment feature. However, the ministry in its notification converted that it has to be compulsorily in prepayment mode. Now this compulsorily provision has brought in some challenges, which I'll come to later. And these have said where it will be done and where it will not be done. It has in fact exempted the agriculture sector. That means the agriculture sector will not have any smart metering installed in that sector. So when you want to convert the whole grid into smart grid and you leave out part of the consumer group, you cannot convert it into a smart grid. That is one drawback when you exempt certain category of consumer from this scheme. And second thing is the AT&C losses are also primarily first through the agricultural consumption. And if agricultural consumption is exempted from smart metering through RDSS scheme notified by the Ministry of Power, then it destroys the very purpose of achieving AT&C target. Now, my statistics is based on audited true-up data for 21-22 of the Uttar Pradesh DISCOMs. we have about 3.21 crore consumers. And out of those 3.21 consumers, 1.45 crore consumers are lifeline consumers. Incidentally, most of them, about 80% of them, were added during the Saubhagya scheme. So this 45% consumer, if you install a prepaid meter, what impact is going to have, I'll just share with you. And they consume 11.89 billion units of energy, which is 12.68% of the total. So their monthly bill is less than 300 and their average energy consumption per month is 68 unit. Okay. Now, the things will emerge when we come to the cost of implementing the smart meters. Then 48.5%, roughly 93% number is comprising of the domestic consumer. 4% of the agriculture which is exempted. Then remaining other commercial and others, technical, etc., they are definitely going to be helpful. But this 45.3 and 4, roughly 50% of consumers are going to be critical in the outcome of RDSS scheme. How they are going to be critical? Now let's come to the bidding which has been done by UP Discom for the RDSS project, and the letter of intent has been awarded for 9 clusters in UP. So what has come? The DPR which has been approved by the financial institution is roughly 21,834 crores. And the bid amount has come, which has been approved and LOI has been given, is 29.619% crores of the that which is in excess about 35% or 7,700 crore in excess. That means this fund is not going to come from the financial institution. From where it is going to come? Either the DISCOM or the consumers. And this incidentally accounts for roughly 3.5 years of full return on equity, which we are giving to the DISCOM currently, which is about 2,300 crore annually. So it's more than 3.5 years crore of ROE will be go towards funding this. So the DISCOMs will have to bear this incremental investment. The cost which has been discovered in the bidding, that means once you install the meter, after that 93 months, you can you have to provide the warranty. The lifetime cost has been discovered between 7,307 to 8,428 rupees. In different cluster, different rates have been discovered, and the monthly meter cost has been worked out as 78 to 90. So roughly we have assumed that is 85 rupees the average cost per month per meter. Now, if you convert this, RDSS has exempted the agriculture from the metering. This gives a legal risk to the whole scheme because the section 47.5 of the Electricity Act, if you do the harmonious interpretation of the Act, it says that person entitled to request, it talks about, although it talks about the security deposit, it talks about person requiring the supply is prepared to take the supply through prepayment. So the consent of person in whose premises you are installing the prepaid meter, his consent is necessary. But the ministry's notification and the RDSS scheme makes it compulsory. So, of course, neither the DISCOM is going to raise this issue nor the regulatory bodies are going to raise this issue. But someday some consumers may go into the court of writ and challenge that this is taking away this right. In any case, other distribution business has got the choice with the consumer. He chooses whether I'll have a postpaid or prepaid. So that is one of the legal risks which has emerged. The second legal risk which has also emerged is disconnection. Now, under section 56, you have to give necessarily 15 days notice for disconnection. How you can incorporate it in the prepaid mode, that is to be seen, because even if a balance becomes zero, you have to give him 15 days notice. That is as per the Act, and you cannot amend the provisions of the Act through a rule which is a subordinate legislation. So that issue is there, and the consequential issue also arises is that the prepayment takes away his CGRF rights. So I think these challenges have to be addressed in coming days. I don't know how these things are challenged has to be seen. But these are the legal risks. Now, coming back to the financial aspect, as I mentioned, 45% of the consumers consume 68 units per month at the rate of 3 rupees. So their monthly bill is 300. And as I mentioned, their monthly meter cost will be 85 rupees. So which is 28% of their monthly connection. And the AT&C losses is 20%. That means to reduce 20%, you have to make a financial expenditure of 28%. So how prudent is that is to be seen. That's what I'm saying. When you're designing the system, you have to design it for the specific situation. But somehow, being a national scheme, it has this one size fits all approach. So that is one problem. The second problem is again the agriculture, which I mentioned, 4.3%, no metering, they become the bottomless pit. All the losses can be booked to them, and ATSC may or may not come depending upon the governance factor of the DISCOMs. And what will happen, since the billing and collection efficiency currently is about 80%, the improvement must come from the remaining consumer, which are CNI and others. Incidentally, most of them, they pay their bill on time as and when billed. So there is no incremental revenue accruing to the consumer, because these consumers are already paying, whether you have a normal meter installed at the premises or smart meter. With the smart meter, you'll have additional technical features which will give the benefit, but in financial terms, it will not give any benefit. Then 35% higher cost, as I have already stated. Now coming to the government of India, I still do not understand why government of India is trying to make money out of the RDSS scheme. The GST, which will be paid on a cost, about 8,000. They had initially worked out 6,000 to be the cost, but if the cost come out to be 8,000 per unit, the government of India will get more by way of GST, but it is giving less than the GST to this grant. So I think since the national object, the NDC, is given by the government of India, the grid benefits are coming to everyone. So why the cost of this scheme through grant should not be borne by the government of India in a higher proportion is still not understood. Then what will happen when the prepaid customers, we have talked about the vulnerable, which is the Saubhagya scheme consumer or lifeline consumers. Either they pay, then the DISCOM is going to lose. What will happen if they don't pay? If they don't pay, all the future revenue stream of the MSI SP will be blocked. It is gone forever, because there will no incremental cash flow which will accrue. Even you may have some sort of payment security mechanism, but that will trigger when only the bill is raised and the money is collected. But if you disconnect it, he doesn't have the capacity to pay, then there is no revenue. How the payment is going to come? So these are the things we have to think about. And I don't know, maybe the things might have developed, but net metering, the government recently has incorporated RTO framework for DERs. That means behind the meter, rooftop solar, etc., etc. That means they have to come in a big way. If you are going to promote rooftop solar, how you are going to do it in prepaid mode? Because the net metering arrangement is adjustment of energy. So some technical adjustment, I don't know, the technical side will work out. But currently I see that there is going to be implementation challenge. Either the smart meter rollout will get affected or the net metering will get affected, because they are going to be in contradiction with each other. About who will pay is a very interesting thing. On 16 September 2023, we have received a letter from Ministry of Power, which says that since the DISCOM will be making money per month more than between 18 to 40 rupees, there is no extra cost to be passed on to the consumer. That means the consumer will not have to pay for the smart meter charges. Incidentally, as a regulator, I also hold the same view, because the consumer has already paid for his meter, and if you are replacing the meter, if it is got defective, then perhaps you can recover that. But if you are changing the meter as per the DISCOM's wish and as per a law which is questionable, perhaps it will be difficult to recover costs from him. But the ministry itself has said that you cannot recover. So that means all the burden has now fallen upon the DISCOM, and the consumers have somehow, courtesy 2024, I think this has been removed from the consumers' consideration. So this is one point I think we also need to cater. Coming back to this 10 years hand-holding is double-edged. This is an investment lending program, and we are trying to achieve a structural objective of reforming. Now, how the institutional capacity of the DISCOM staff will improve if they are not managing the structure itself. So I think it needs to be redesigned, although hand-holding 93 months makes sense, but there has to be some compromise in between for improving upon the institutional capacity of the DISCOM employees. And of course, when you have the smart meters in the prepaid mode, the DISCOM have to also lose by way of working capital eligibility, which is given to them in the tariff, and they have to pass on that discount. There is no, it's a revenue neutral thing. It has to be revenue neutral, because otherwise we allow them to borrow from the financial institution and allow them certain financial cost of that. But if they are taking that money in advance, they have to pass on, and it is also as per the ministry's guideline. Now, coming back to the MISP risk. What has happened since the ministry has squeezed the timeline of implementation, lot of issues have arisen. The smart meter, which we installed in 3,000 rupees in 2019 onwards, is now being quoted as 8,000 rupees. Why? Because we have squeezed the time frame, and the availability and supply is limited. So everyone is quoting a higher price. And it happens with most of the government scheme. Whenever the government scheme comes, the prices of things go up. Most of the MISPs, what they have done, if you go and look at their equity base, sometimes I try to find out the big companies' equity base and the orders which they have procured, because at least they will need some 15-20% by way of equity for such a long duration project. I don't see it there. That means something is happening. That means it's getting loaded into the project. They are over leveraging it. So that risk is going to be with them only. This I have already said, that if the consumers get disconnected, then the revenue streams starts getting dried up, and the MISP, even they may hire escrow or PSM, whatever, they will not get. Then this is another socio-economic risk, that scheme, if it is implemented in a low income state where the willingness is lower, will have certain more risk. Another disconnect is that the BIS provides for manufacturer warranty of 5.5 years, whereas in the RDSS scheme it is 93 months. So something needs to be seen, that because what will happen, the cost will go up. So what is the rationale, etc. I am not aware of it, but this is the difference I found out. And the risk duration is too much. 93 months for doing everything, like including replacement of faulty meter, maintaining the last mile connectivity, cloud and IT services upgrades as and when required. Is such a open-ended thing, because we have landed in the same dispute in UP. When they introduced this, they started with some Chinese meters. ESL did some import of Chinese meter with 2G technology. Now the 2G technology, I'll talk about that later also, but those risks remain. Then as mentioned, payment security mechanism is going to conflict with the existing seniority of payment mechanism of the generators. We already have many disputes in our state. What happens when you have a revenue stream and escrow is created and some generating company signs a payment security mechanism? The next one which comes only gets the senior claim on the senior excess one. which is more than the earlier one. So they have to prove that actually they are getting incremental revenue stream, then only they will get. Otherwise, they will not get. So that thing has to be proven. What Mr. Rawal was saying is correct. It is very difficult to get the payment if one fails to understand, fails to establish there is a additionality in the revenue stream. Then GPRS technology is dying on basically 2G based. Most of the first generation, they were based on 2G. Lot of problem. Connection disconnection rate was very poor. Lots of issues, etc. happened. I think now I presume that it will be an efficient one. It's a technologically better one which will come, and this will bring in additional risk of fighting for spectrum. The smart phone number is 60 crores. Add to it 25 crore smart meters, and many other smart equipments are coming based on cellular. So obviously, once you have that number in place, there are going to be increase in telecommunication charges, which will fall upon the MISP. Then in Europe, what has started happening? The technology companies, they have started charging IPR fee for technology used in 3G, 4G, etc. for smart meter communication. This disease is going to come today, tomorrow, or whatever. So this will also fall upon the AMISP companies. So what are the key takeaways? My view is that RDSS smart metering should extend beyond merely enhancing the bill collection efficiency and should be used as a building block for smart meters. And unless until we do that, it will not be a full value for money. And technically and skilled manpower availability has to be improved upon. If unless until we expand that implementation horizon, it's going to be very, very difficult. The subsidy which is provided by the government should be increased because they are also the central and the state government are the beneficiaries of this thing. This is going to help them in achieving their commitment, which is given to the decarbonization for the decarbonization of the grid. And comprehensive coverage is extended to all consumers. Unfortunately, private sector has been exempted. Their AT&C is okay. It is below the threshold. But if you want to make a smart grid, you should not distinguish between public and private, and therefore the private sector should also be made eligible under RDSS scheme. So these are some of my thoughts I thought I'll share with this forum, and thank you once again for giving me this opportunity.
Great, excellent, sir. Thank you very much, RP Singh, sir. Very insightful presentation, and in fact, this is a perfect presentation to open floor for questions, open floor for observation from our many specialists on this power sector here, and then finally concluding it by Mr. Sardana sir and Sai sir. But thank you very much, RP Singh sir. Very insightful and very key points which you have touched are actually thought-provoking points. Thank you, sir. So, Sardana sir, if you permit, I think let's have observations from our experts who are present here, and then I leave it for you to summarize.
Yeah, sure. If there are any questions, it will be always useful to get their inputs. Rawat sir, you can remove the presentation. Okay, Sanjay, it seems right now there are no immediate questions. So should I just go ahead and summarize what's been the discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I guess once again, very good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for joining. While the subject is of immense interest, it takes me back 20 years to the time when we started electronic meters for the first time in Delhi. And I recall some of the anecdotes and some of the important points that experts have made today, especially the points related to how the implementation aspects must be attuned rather than just the conceptual aspects. And when Mr. Shai was saying initially that he gives full marks to the scheme, and of course very doubtful on the implementation, I thought he was alluding to that point. But when Anil Raval made his presentation, I guess he almost thought that even the scheme had its own glitches, which is what Mr. even R.P. Singh alluded to in his presentation, that having removed some of the elements out of it, be it the private sector or be it the agriculture sector, perhaps doesn't augur well. And he even questioned the basis of how the prepaid as a concept will not lead to tomorrow consumers actually asking for their right to choose. In fact, let me react to that point. I have always, as a DISCOM person, believed that this prepaid and postpaid is actually a misnomer. One has to distinguish between the fact that what's been the pattern of a customer paying. Because the security deposit as a concept has been provided in the hands of the regulator. And the DISCOM can do justice to call that as a prepaid, because after all, if you are actually, the approval that we took from the regulator was the fact that allow me to make security deposit also, appropriated based on the consumption for every 6 months. So once you do that in the billing itself, it's nothing but prepaid, because you're already securitizing your payment for the period that requires consumer to pay officially. And thereafter, of course, you have the right to disconnect. So I agree with Mr. R.P. Singh. I think we make too much out of all of this, and that adds to the cost of technology, because the provisions exist today in the Act for a DISCOM and a regulator to actually create a prepaid mechanism without defining that that feature has to be a feature of the metering itself. In both the cases, whether it is postpaid and prepaid, we can achieve the same objective by actually tuning the system so that the customer doesn't have to go through the hardship. We have enough time to check and then disconnect and send the disconnection command through the system. So that was one point that I wanted to say. Second point, I loved when Anil mentioned about his hardship in terms of the fact that when check meters came in, somebody asked him that the old meter is the check meter. I wanted to tell him, though he's gone for some call, I will tell him separately, and maybe Sanjay can also pitch in. I remember in 2002, when we started introducing electronic meter, there was a self-proclaimed R&D specialist who came in and said, I have a 100-watt GLS lamp, and I'm putting your meter and calibrating and finding that the meter runs fast. Now, this self-proclaimed R&D specialist was a guy who perhaps had no experience of having worked in any R&D lab or anything, but he had contact with his cousins and friends in Times of India. So they gave, more than bigger pictures than then Prime Minister on the front page to this guy, and he will explain as to how consumers are being cheated. Eventually, I sought time from the registrar of High Court and requested him that I need to bring in a special petition to the High Court panel because this is a public issue. And to my surprise, I got an audience from one of the judges. I don't want to name the judge, but you all can see his judgment, and I will tell you the case. And he held this entire discussion as an eminent jury with that expert, with us, with CPRI people, with manufacturers, with IIT, and eventually then told me, file the petition, and within 1 week, reserved the order, gave a 259-page order, which is so scientific. Later on, he told me he was MSc Physics and wanted to understand the subject as to how meters could be termed as fast or slow. And this guy, he gave him a contempt, including Times of India, to apologize to public at large for not verifying news. How could a GLS lamp be considered as a benchmark, because that GLS lamp is nothing but a wraparound filament, and it cannot be considered as 100 watt if it's saying 100 watt, and meter is obviously very fast. So those kind of things. So he even quoted many instances of electronic watches versus analog watches and stuff like that. So coming back to the point which some of the experts made, I think it's important to realize the fact that there will be not one, hundreds of challenge once the kind of numbers that we have amongst us start to get implemented. And Sanjay rightly said, he and me have had these experiences in Discom in which everything starts with the fact that you are a sinner. And then you start training customers and stakeholders, and you have to therefore learn out of those experiences. And I agree with what Sunil was saying, that we need to train the customers much before the meters actually start donning their homes and their premises. And those are some of the aspects I think that were alluded to by several of the people. So I think it's been a very good session. But when we take the topic as success of the ongoing efforts, it's important to realize the fact that unless we have the adjoining features also deliberated and put on a poster, at least for implementation partners and discoms. I saw Mr. R.P. Singh's presentation. In his model, his team has obviously not taken the benefits of use cases. They have not monetized that part. They've taken the model based on the cost of the meter, the annuity, and then worked out 85 rupees, which is very right for him to do so, because he's not been shown those details as to what more benefits can the customer be provided by virtue of this meter. And sir, the fact is, there is a lot that can be done with that data. There is a lot that use cases have to be clearly enunciated by the partners in terms of who's going to use that data, including the fact that a guy who's going to pay 60 odd rupees and have a cost of 85, how would we give the benefit of that delta in terms of such low consuming customers? So there has to be that entire work around the benefits that one has to bring for reliability, for scalability, for improvement in how the networks will be designed tomorrow, improvement in how we can shift smaller transformer at his location versus a 630 kVA transformer that may have been originally planned, therefore reduce losses in the system. A lot of things have been done. You'll be surprised. We have shuffled more than 1,000 transformers after our takeover in city of Mumbai, where we were just keeping transformers of very large capacity, where the consumption will not exceed a particular limit and therefore reduce losses. And that's how our losses today, even technical losses today, have reduced. But those are all advantages of actually integrated working. There is a lot of working that we are doing using some of this data in terms of upselling, cross-selling, and several other kind of advantages that you give to the customer. So I think we haven't talked, but Ghanshyamji did mention in his point to say that that's the thinking as to how do we really launch RDSS 2, targeting automation, resource adequacy studies, see as to how we can benefit discoms. I'm saying at least the first part, we should take it to the logical conclusion in terms of at least putting a complete canvas of what benefits can a smart meter or the RDSS scheme should provide to a customer at large. And the regulators must be taken into confidence, given those inputs, and the regulators must ask Discom, when are you launching those beneficial schemes? When are you quantifying and monetizing those schemes so that the delta can be bridged? Because he's right in saying Discoms are already on crutches. They cannot be loaded further with those deltas, which he showed in his calculation. So I fully agree with him in terms of how it is to be done. One of the points that Ghanshyamji made about correlation to the past billing gaps, I think to that extent, he has to explain perhaps clarity with regard to the fact how do we really look at the aspect of 126, section 126 and 135? Because if those become relevant, the DISCOM, if they have not billed, obviously cannot bill because there is clear provision in the Act for 6 months. If you have not billed for 6 months, you have no right to claim for the past. But what about 126 and 135? There is a misuse or there is a theft. I think since he's not there, we'll perhaps separately check with him on some of those aspects. The confidence building measures that he talked about, including check meters, of course, we have talked about it. Sanjay, of course, gave his point of view based on his immense experience and a lot of inputs with regard to the fact as to how billing needs to be improved. I think, Sanjay, you made a brilliant point in terms of the fact most of the people in DISCOMs are still running the billing systems which are archaic. But they will not be able to take those benefits. And I agree with you there that how do we improve not just billing efficiency, but the billing mechanism itself, so that all that I have talked about in terms of added benefits can also be then passed on to the customers, duly quantified. A wonderful presentation by Anil, lots of experience, but I was very happy reading Mr. R.P. Singh's one line that while 52 odd vendors have been pre-qualified, most of them are not experienced, something like that. Yes. And I think he made a brilliant point because this is going to be one of the biggest challenge. Everybody believes putting a meter is or dealing with meter is just like any other contract. It isn't. You require a background of what does it mean from customer and DISCOM perspective? What does it mean from regulatory perspective? What does it mean from the lay of the entire DISCOM? And I guess very clearly was visible in IntelliSmart, which obviously didn't have that experience before. Now will gain over a period of time, but his points were absolutely bullseye in terms of all that we have experienced in the past. And I'm sure, I keep saying this to our team, that you are up against a tremendous uphill challenge in terms of implementation. While people are very euphoric booking orders, but delivering the promissory estoppels are going to be equally challenging. So yes, those are challenges. And Mr. Shahi, in the passing, made the point that when he sees somebody giving payment in a DISCOM, like Sunil was mentioning about Bihar DISCOM, he said, it scares me. I'm completely with him. And what I was perhaps reminiscence of the fact that when Anil was making that some DISCOMs are reopening conditions, some are asking for newer stuff, or they're asking for 100% check. I think these are part and parcel of the issues that DISCOM officers have vis-a-vis the environment in which they have grown. And I have always, of course, been of the view that these are all half-hearted attempts that we make for reforms. We pick up one particular vertical, we start reforming that without looking at the holistic vertical. So unless we get performance aspect embedded into the entire DISCOM, unless the regulators are empowered to seek that part or punish them in quantifiable terms, these are all temporary measures. Somehow or the other, these 10 years will also pass. And Mr. Shahi made a beautiful point about sub-licensing. So can we look at something like that and use the benefit of some of the distribution experienced people coming there and maybe participating in improvement of the DISCOM in a holistic sense? Not sure how, but we have to sit and discuss about some of those aspects. I think it'll be important. Sunil's point with regard to capability in the country and the pride that he took in terms of is quite palpable. And I will echo his point, because from 2002 onwards, when we saw in Delhi how Secure and many others supported us into creating the right metering solutions. So we must laud these companies because they were genuine partners at the time of need. And we did not police the system. If today private discoms have losses lower than 7-6%, it's not because they're just doing policing, it's because they are actually using data analytics. And that data analytics throws up all the answers to questions because it's not a rocket science. But the sad part is some of those state-owned enterprises either don't get enabled or are not demanded those stuff, or it augurs well for them to continue in the current state. So those are some of the issues that Sunil perhaps alluded to when he talked about the fact that our R&D and our capability is certainly great in terms of how we need to do. Last but not the least, I will pick up from what Mr. R.P. Singh said. I think this country is going to see this as one of a very big challenge. Sunil alluded to, Anil alluded to, and Mr. R.P. Singh alluded to the fact that we will need something like 100,000 hands to go around and actually do all this system execution in the time frame that we have set. Today, when you train these hands, be mindful of the fact that we saw in Delhi that they were also equally colluding to either the customers or to the existing staff. So you not only just have to use technology in meters, but you have to also do technology in doing salary management on these staff. Because if you don't get into ascertaining the quality of work that they do, you're in for further challenges, in for a lot of repeat work, a lot of wastage that will happen. So all in all, while the scheme is good, one, it's a pocket of the larger reform agenda that is so badly needed in distribution. And I would continue to allude that I think more spine is needed in the policy making, in the regulation side, to allow large-scale reform, well-meaning reform with accountability and responsibility towards customers. And at the same time, one needs to go through some of these aspects with larger agenda, with the larger aspect of capacity building and eventually leading to a larger plan of how I will cause overall and holistic DISCOM reform. And that is what I will call a success, rather than success of one RDSS on one RADRP or one RGGVY scheme or one APDRP scheme. Those have not yielded holistic change. And I think we should aim at holistic change. And sooner that this is made as a part of that holistic change, or RDSS 2 included, is aimed at the holistic change to make sure that DISCOMs are all performance oriented, they're all answerable to the eventual customer, they deliver all parameters which are benchmarked to the global standards, which is what Mr. Ghanshyam said. I think the success will still continue to elude. And I conclude with the first point that Mr. Shahi made, that how long will it take for us to get this last mile corrected will determine how far we have succeeded in the power sector in this country. While we have succeeded in the G, we have succeeded in T in quite a glorified way. I think it's the last mile that needs all our attention. And I'll hope that we will be able to spend more time on this. So thank you, Sanjay, for giving this opportunity. You may take it forward then.
Thank you very much, sir, for summarizing in the entire workshop and bringing your own rich experience of this sector. Before I hand over to Shahi sir for concluding remarks, just 2 points I want to add. The success factor when we consider of this scheme will truly be successful if we leverage it fully, because this smart metering has not been implemented in the entire world. If we see in developed country, not for AT&C losses, even for in India, if we see the way we are implementing in Mumbai and Delhi is not for AT&C losses, where losses are already 6% level, but more for how we can reduce our capex, how we can have a better load balancing and reduction in technical losses, how we can use this smart metering for outage management and improve reliability. If these are not being, these benefits are not being leveraged, then the scheme is not successful. And the losses anyway can be reduced even without smart metering. We have seen Delhi as a live case, and even I'm going to an extent to say in Odisha, we have seen 10% reduction in 3 discoms without implementing smart metering. Second, I also find this is the first time big corporates are engaging with discoms on a long-term basis. I think holistically, if these corporates can help in distribution companies to reform through this association and bring some kind of a distribution reform, or in fact, initiate some kind of distribution reform because of this long-term association, then also I can consider this scheme as a successful scheme, which may not be the agenda or objective of this scheme as such. With these 2 points, I now request Mr. Sahi for his concluding remarks, and we'll then close this workshop with vote of thanks from Mr. Bambani. Shahi sir. Shahi sir, are you there?
No, he's not there. Sahi sahab nahi hai.
Okay.
So Sanjay, it's likely
And
that he had a flight. Perhaps he must have dropped off.
Okay, so we'll close this workshop, sir. Bambani sir, your last point. Sir, you are on mute.
Proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks. I think we had a very, very successful summit, and the area which you rightly said, we have tackled generation, transmission, but distribution is the most important area which has to be tackled. And a lot of experts gave their views. Smart metering is the answer. And we were honored by the presence of Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad, Chairman CEA. So once again, I thank all participants. I salute the experts who gave their presentation on the subject and brought out all the issues. Rightly, Mr. Sardana also gave a total brief of the summit and followed by Mr. Banga. So again, I'm happy that I'm proposing a vote of thanks to all those who are present. It's a webinar, so we are not able to provide you lunch, but surely we will have the physical seminar. And with these words,
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Bambani sir, and special thanks to Sardana sir for his guidance, for setting up this workshop context and bringing his experience.
Thank you to everyone, and thank you, Sanjay, for doing a brilliant job of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. R.P. Singh, Mr. Garg, Dr. Malti, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.